Good morning. Thank you for joining not just me today, but these incredible students and school staff behind me who helped with this effort and took the time to join me here today in Harrisburg. Today, I am proud to announce the publication of the Office of Attorney General's teenTALK report on youth, mental health, and gun violence. This report is based on roundtables that I had with students throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And these roundtable discussions and the subsequent report focus on how students are experiencing gun violence in their communities and how it is impacting their lives. We are launching this report now at the end of the school year and during Gun Violence Awareness Month this month in June, so that schools can take time to review the report, digest it, and make any changes that they think are necessary or important for their particular schools. Also, just this morning, we heard the U.S. Surgeon General issue an advisory that reflected exactly what we learned from these roundtable and the impact, the negative impact of gun violence on mental health. Our children are dealing with the destruction that guns cause nearly every day. We must do what we can to support them in response to their trauma and their fear. And one theme that really came out during these roundtables is just how accessible guns are to young people and how commonplace firearms, gun violence, and the fears of gun violence are in their daily lives. And let me say something, despite that reality, we were so impressed by the students' initiative to be involved in change. Their experiences, frustrations, and ideas are captured in this report. So let me take a minute to explain how these roundtables came about. Last year, the school districts of Philadelphia, McKeesport, Hazleton, and Stilton High Spry opened their doors to me so I could listen to their students speak candidly about their experiences with gun violence. And I have to just say, I am so grateful for these students, some of which are behind me, for participating and for trusting me enough to be vulnerable and open about what they need from their schools and the adults in their lives. These were student-led discussions. We sat in a circle around, and these students shared with me their fears and their concerns. And I commend them for their honesty and their courage to do so. And to the district administrators, the teachers, the counselors, and other school staff that help make these roundtables possible, thank you. Thank you so much. It was all of you who helped make this come together for me to be able to meet with 9th through 12th graders who had a wide range of different backgrounds. I met with football players to band members and everything in between. And these children came together with different backgrounds and a variety of experiences, and they all were open and honest and shared with me. And these schools were chosen because of the different regions they represent in our Commonwealth. At these schools, we met inspiring school leaders who are already working very hard to help their students with gun violence. But there is always more that can be done. Our goal was to identify solutions and strategies that could be activated right now. That is not to say that bigger, long-term answers are not urgently needed, but just that the focus of this project was on where we could have the greatest impact immediately. Admittedly, sometimes it may feel so futile to consider addressing a huge problem like gun violence, but through our discussions, we found that parents, educators, and even peers have many resources at their disposal to help with the students in the aftermath of gun violence related incidents. But sometimes they're just not thought of. Until every student can grow up free from the scourge of gun violence, we must continue to strive to build schools and communities that root out damaging behaviors, protect students' mental health, and provide support for those who have already been harmed. Now, I'm not going to go through everything that's contained in our report. It's here available to all of you today, but I wanted to just go through a couple of the highlights of the things that I heard and learned through these conversations. And again, we discussed a wide range of topics, but these are some of the ones that I think are especially important to highlight. We heard about concerns with communication and transparency from authorities. We heard about conflict resolution, fear of retaliation, impact of negative school stigma. And let me just say, at one of the schools I went to, there was an incident that occurred at that school involving gun violence. And these students shared with me that at that same time, their school was in the basketball championships, and they were proud of that. And it was that next day that that game was supposed to be held at their school, and they shared with me the feelings that they had when the other school said, we don't want to come there. We don't want to be there, and the impact that that had on their mental health. They shared with me the social media impacts, stress reduction, calming strategies, student connectedness, student support personnel and teachers, and trauma-sensitive recovery and return to learning. And one thing that I really want to make clear, the students who participated in the teenTALK roundtables, and especially these guys that are standing here behind me, these are our future leaders. I cannot say enough about how impressed I was with their strength, their awareness, and their drive to find solutions and make a difference. These kids, young adults, told me about how they're thinking about the possibility of shootings when they walk to and from school. That they know students who carry weapons, both at school and in the neighborhoods. These students are seeing things that were once taken care of outside of school, maybe in the parking lot with a verbal argument or even a fist fight, are now escalating to the point that threats are being made with weapons, if not actual armed attacks. Trying to live with this much awareness of danger at any given second is making it hard for these students to switch gears between their academics and the fear that they feel for their own safety, as well as the safety of people that they care about around them. They shared that after-school activities are often important after a traumatic event to help them feel supported. And although district to district, student to student, we recognized that they all had different ideas of what would help them the most, there were a few things that almost all the students agreed upon. These students want and need time to process the trauma of the gun violence they're seeing in their own lives. Some students will need more time than others, but as a baseline, they don't feel like they're given the time they need. For students in schools that have had to go into lockdown due to violence or the threat of violence, or offenders near or on school property, they felt that there was not enough transparency about what was happening. They craved information about their own safety and the safety of friends and families. Similarly, if students saw and reported threatening comments by schoolmates made on social media, they never knew what action, if anything, was taken, and they found that to be incredibly distressing to them. This is just a small portion of how these kids saw social media impacting their day-to-day lives. whether or not gun violence was the subject of the content they're viewing. I know that each school and each district needs to work on what solutions fit best for them and their community. But the top priority for these students focused on a couple things that I'm just going to hit. First, improved communication between school officials and students so that the uncertainty of what is happening doesn't add to the negative impact on the students' mental health, and that they can build trust. Two, options for mental health services are needed to provide support for students, plus the staffing to handle the amount of students seeking these services. Students shared with me how important having counselors at their schools are, but often stress that there weren't enough of them, enough resources. And fundings for programming like social, emotional learning, and conflict resolution, peer mediation. These need to be prioritized. Look, we all know that one new program, one new hire, or even one new bill passed isn't going to be enough. For many of these students, they need help processing things that have already happened or that could happen tomorrow or next week. And they need that help now. We want these students to be thinking about their incredibly bright futures, the opportunities that, if allowed to focus on their dreams instead of violence, they can achieve. So what we need to do is to support them. We hope that every school district in this great Commonwealth sees something in this report that they can add to what they're already doing, build on, and develop, all in the name of doing what's best for the students. So thank you again to the schools that participated in this effort and to the students. Thank you again. None of this would have been possible without your honesty, candor during these discussions. The truth is, I can't wait to see what the future holds for all of these students. We offer this report as a tool for schools to consider as they evolve their planning for the next school years. We hope it serves them well. We also hope that legislatures can implement some of common sense gun safety measures our students talked about, possibly as soon as the next legislative session. Together, we can find ways to change our communities. Thank you all for being here.
Break out down here.